This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Sam Beiko, the illustrious host of this week's episode and also an author of young adult fiction. Her next book, Children of the Bloodlands, is book 2 in the Realms of Ancient series, which will be out September 25th, wherever books are sold from ECW Press.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Pulp Science, the podcast where we talk about how genre gets made. I am not Gregory Chomichuk, nor am I Justin Currie, but for those of you that don't know, I am their boss, and they tagged me in this week, much to their detriment. So today, I'm going to be running the show.
Thanks for having us, Sam.
You're welcome, Greg. His voice sounds a little watery and scared. That's because they are now hostage. So,
how do we get out, Justin?
Can the two of you introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Sure. I'm Gregory Chomichuk. I write and illustrate books and comics.
And I'm Justin Currie. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I run Chasing Artwork. I do digital paintings and a little bit of publishing as well.
A bit of publishing and some movie previs occasionally.
Just repeat exactly what he says. Everyone wants to hear it twice.
Yeah. Everyone wants to hear it twice.
Every week, Greg says that Justin is the long-suffering co-host, but the reality is I'm sitting in the background for all of these, and it is me who is suffering, and this week it will be you two who are suffering.
Oh, my God, I'm not ready for this. Okay, I'm moving over here so we have a united front. What are we going to talk about
Greg
today,
was
Sam?
very nice and got me a coffee this morning. Also his mistake.
He had to go to two different coffee shops to make that happen.
Because I am high maintenance.
She needs soy milk.
So the two of you, I want to ask you how your week has been going, because actually behind the scenes, a lot of things you haven't been talking about on social media have been unfolding. Wondered if you could delve into the magical, creative day-to-day of what's been happening to you lately.
Oh, my God. Go first.
So, yeah, because I don't have nearly as much to talk about as
I don't
Greg
know.
did.
There's a lot of duck business happening on your end.
It's an owl.
It's an owl. That's right. There's a duck involved, but it's an owl. So I have been, I am in a little bit of a Comic-Con lull right now. My June is fairly quiet as far as shows go until June 23rd, 24th is the Fan Quest here in the city. But prior to this, I had like 5 Comic-Cons back to back to back. And those 5 weeks, you know, every weekend I'm in a different city, and the days leading up to that, I've been preparing for those shows. So suddenly I find myself with like actual time to get work done, and it's almost like overwhelming because I have so many options of what I can be working on right now. My only project that I have the only client project I've taken on this year really has been Ollie and the Missing Who's, a book I'm working on with Susan Wolf, and that is coming to a close this week. We just went through like our final batch of changes, and I'm at the point where I like this part of the book. As I'm working on a book, I'll kind of build my files in Illustrator, and I just take screenshots and plop them in the book as just kind of holders as we finish everything up. But as the final step, I open up every single native file, and I go once over, and I just do some fine-tuning, and then I output that final file and do the color corrections, and it's kind of like filling up the book from scratch.
That's
you
right.
know?
And so just to kind of talk to our listeners a bit about your background in doing kids' books. So you've done Cassie and Tonk and Rust and Water with Greg, and those books they're formatted like a kid's book, but they have frames and panels like a comic or a graphic novel. The book that preceded Ollie and the Missing Who's was Quackers Learns to Fly.
Wants to Fly.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at it right now. It's literally right behind you. Quackers Wants to Fly. And it's like a very classic traditional children's book where it's just an illustration per page or so, and then the text integrated into it. Is your process different for this kind of format than it was for, say, Cassie and Tonk or Rust and Water?
Not as much.
Why are you nodding? You don't know, Greg.
I think it's simpler story beats, right? So in Cassie and Tonk or Rust and Water, there's, you know, a couple things happen per page. But in the kids' book, it's usually, you know, it's one thing happening on a page. And that was when I originally got this script, that was a little back and forth. I had kind of informing Sue of the best way to do it. She would the first script had the friends of the pond doing a lot of things per page, and for it to be most effective, it kind of has to be one story beat per page. Right. So there's a lot of back and forth at the beginning to make it cohesive. We want to see all the friends of the pond doing things as a team. Mm-hmm. And originally it was kind of them all going off on their own little mini adventures, which meant for me I would have to draw a scene for every single one of those 5 characters doing every one of those 5 actions, and that would have turned into either panels or way too many pages.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have a really neat kind of relationship with these books, because it's not like Susan has just come to you and it's just like, I'm hiring you, and then that's it. You don't have anything to do with it. You have way more input.
That is how it started.
That's how it started. Yeah, that was one of my very first.
It so much you bought the company.
Susan originally contacted me through a printer that had printed another project I'd worked on. She was an author looking for an illustrator. They connected us. We clicked. We really liked working together. Oh, hold on just one sec.
This episode of Super Pulp Science has been brought to you by Steel Doors, because these two don't want to have anything that's in the studio stolen.
Hello and welcome. Robin, the new property manager. I wish we had some proper gift to present to you.
You have all these posters.
Yeah, we have some.
This episode is also brought to you by Italo, a very good maintenance man. He is super good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super conscientious. Okay,
yeah, Justin, why didn't you know last week when the roof man was coming? Also,
yeah,
that's on you.
That's on you.
That's on me. Yeah, I was a couple hours too late on that one. Sorry, what was I talking about? Sue, me and Sue working together now.
Yes. So how can you tell me?
Wants to
die.
What?
So yeah. As a side note, it's really hard to work on age-appropriate books in this studio with Gregory Chomichuk whispering twists and turns.
Yes, he has a penchant for turning beautiful, innocent tales into nihilistic murder spirals.
All I'm doing is I'm trying to see if your intent is pure and if you can handle a slight deviation in the plot tossed at you and still stay on course.
Anyways,
if you say to yourself, yes, it should be a book about dark and twisted endings where the duck cannibalizes his friends, then that's your fault.
Okay, all right. Anyway, Justin,
ducks do eat their own. That's true.
That was the secret DuckTales show that never got aired.
the zombie episode.
DuckTales, yeah.
A sea monster ate my ice cream. A sea monster ate my ice cream. A sea monster ate my ice cream.
We originally went through a publisher, and it was kind of my first experience with a publisher, and things really didn't go super great with just the distribution and the printing. And it was a little bit of a disappointment end to such a fun project to work on. Fast forward a couple years later, the rights from the publisher came back to us. We were able to reprint and self-publish, and because now I have experience book touring and doing Comic-Cons and kind of doing a bit of distribution on my own, I was able to take Quackers into my self-published library. And so now that I knew how that could do just under my own steam, I was eager to jump into the next book in the series, with the plan being me print and me distribute, with maybe a publisher down the line, but we're kind of happy to sell the book ourselves. So it's kind of nice not having any boss at the end of the project. It's just Sue and I doing what we know is the right thing to do, and knowing exactly where it's going to go and how it's going to get there, which is just through us.
That's beautiful.
Such a happy ending.
It is.
And we're going to do a third book as well. It's going to be 3 books at the end of the day.
The third one is about Gertie the goose, isn't it?
I think so.
Yes, the bird trifecta.
Yeah. What about the dragonfly?
I really want one. I'm just going to phone up Susan and be like, "Listen, you should do one about the bee, and and some of the proceeds should go to saving bees.
I'm telling you,
you'll make a lot of dollars, Sue. It'll be a bonus book Be more work for you.
What if you should write that?
Oh no!
Sam.
Oh no! I'm not touching Susan's intellectual property. She's a lovely woman. She will come after me.
See, it always ends in some twisted murder plot. You guys are monsters. That's all I have to say.
Oh yes! Earlier
Yeah.
today, when I came into the studio, I was trying to tell
let's not
Greg
tell
about
these
my
stories.
wonderful.
Okay, we have to edit all this out, Tim.
I was telling Greg about my wonderful pastoral experience yesterday, and he turned it into a murder plot. Not only a hypothetical one, but one he wishes he were a part of.
Okay, it's not my fault, dear listeners.
Anyways, how's
here
your
is
week
the reason
been?
why everything is turned into a horror movie. It's because later this month I'm going to be on set shooting. Well, I won't be shooting. I won't be directing. Mike Sanders will be directing it. A little short horror film. We're doing it as a short, little 2-day shoot, and then there's a very strong chance later this year we will also be shooting a horror feature, which we've had to put together in a really short span of time. So there's been a lot of murder brainstorming, fictional murder brainstorming, that has kind of permeated other facets of my work-life balance.
So as somebody in the comics and publishing world who would like to get into movies, how did you make that transition?
By saying no to an email. I got a email from a movie producer. Said, "Would you like to look over a script for me?"
Because they were familiar with your graphic novels.
They were familiar with my graphic novel work, and dear listener, I get a number of requests fairly regularly for reviewing people's scripts and works to give, what amounts to a whole bunch of free feedback. And if we know each other and we've been, cordial in the past, I'm pretty happy to do that. It's fun for me. But if you're a complete stranger hoping to take some of my working time away or my family time away, I usually say no, or I add a caveat that, yes, here is my day rate. I'll review your script for a whole day. This is what it will cost you. So I had sent that sort of no-go away email, and instead they were happy to pay for that day rate, and that started a conversation on one project that led to a conversation about another project that led to a conversation, the what else have you got conversation,
which is the conversation we all want from somebody in the movie industry, right?
Yeah, it's it's a pretty cool thing. And now I will add the caveat that this is not in the Deadpool category of filmmaking, but more in the Blair Witch Project category of filmmaking. Like, we are not, someone did not arrive with a dump truck full of money. They arrived with the capacity to produce a feature-length film with a professional crew in a very short span of time in a closed location. And could we come up with an idea that worked? It's pretty wild, and I'd love to do a whole podcast on all of the working parts of that with the people involved. We'll bring them all on the show.
Do you see this as a stepping stone or a one-off? What do you want it to be?
Of course, the long-term goal would be to say, hey, this producing partner is really great to work with. Hey, they really liked what we did. Could we do it again? There's a sweet spot in filmmaking. Myself and a number of people who I've worked with for a few years at Electric Monk believe, where the glut, all the extra money that goes into a lot of films could be better spent in different ways, and we've been working hard to create a framework that would allow for that. And this is going to be us putting our literal money where our mouths are to see if we can pull it off. So it's can be fairly nerve-wracking to write under a deadline, but not just write. Writing under deadline is fine. I actually really enjoy that. But iterating a number of different ideas under a deadline where you have to sort of be married to it only for the few hours, like really be passionate about your idea, and then turn that passion off and start over again.
And you'll be working with a team of writers, or will you be working kind of on your own, drafting ideas, sending them through, developing them? Like, what's the process for this, and how does it differ from your comics writing?
Okay, so right now, it would... So in graphic novels, I normally will figure out the script beats and then write the script and then produce the work itself.
So you write the outline, then write the script, and then storyboard?
And then I do storyboard. So that's like my normal process. For this, we would have what's called a story by credit. So we're coming up with the treatment, the beat sheet of all the essential actions and elements within the film.
Which is 10 to 15 pages.
Yeah, it's 10 or 15 pages.
Normally.
All the key moments of dialogue are all in there. And then we pass that off to a script writer who then pounds that out into
Fleshes
80
it
or
out.
90 pages. A page a minute is the rough equivalent of page to screen.
Okay.
Which is why it's formatted a specific way.
Gotcha.
Right? All that weird formatting is
Yeah.
that it adds up.
Oh,
Roughly equivalent
that's
to a page a minute.
Fun fact.
Fun film facts, ladies and gentlemen, on Super Pulp Science.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries and read up on Angel. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
And on top of all of that stuff, I also came to the realization of where I was standing on a different project, is that I was having, it's like the aforementioned notion of the creative difference. So I was working on a project for a publisher, and I realized that style and content are two very different types of criticisms you can receive over the work. And I realized that a whole bunch of things that were being misconstrued as content changes were actually style changes. And after 2 months of working on a project, I had to go to the managing editor and say, I am clearly the wrong person for this. Everyone is trying to make this work, and I've been working hard to make it work, but we all have to agree that these changes, they're asking for a different style. It's the art that bothers them, not the content, because I've changed all the content and to match exactly what's been asked for a number of times. And so really you have to talk to this writer and get them to search their soul and realize that I'm the wrong artist for this project.
I find that surprising, because at this point in your career, at a certain point in your career, people start hiring you for your style. So to be working with somebody where your style is the problem, that seems like a big misstep.
Yeah, it felt like a misstep, but it's partially because I broke my own rules. I have some pretty good rules that have served me low these many years, and I
thought maybe just this one time.
And so those rules, dear listeners, are pretty straightforward. You should only work on long projects with people you've at least met once in person. You should know what kind of person they are. Not that there was any problem specifically with this individual, but just that we didn't have that chance to meet and know each other very well. And so we didn't have open lines of communication, and open lines of communication are essential. There was a go-between between the publisher and the author. I don't like working that way either. I want to talk to them directly about changes. And there was a specific agenda to the story, which I think makes the story a better story, that I wasn't aware of until later on in the process. So all of these things are the reasons why I'm not a good fit for that project. So on top of having one opportunity where hey, your creative vision is what we want, come and do this, give us lots of ideas, we value you, we want you. That was one side of the week. And on the other side of the week, it was realizing, no, I'm absolutely the wrong person. My creative vision is mismatched, that this is not a good place for me and not a good fit. So
now that kind of perspective is it's something that maybe, and this is just subjective opinion here, has taken you several years of working collaboratively to make the decision to step out, because I know a lot of artists are just I'm going to have to stick it through because I have a contract, because opportunities are very thin on the ground, and I'm just developing my career. So for you, you're very established in your career and you have a very varied body of work. How many years did it take to develop the ability to say no to something like this?
I've been in a very unique position because I had another job that I also loved. So when I was teaching, I spent 10 years as a teacher. That gave me a solid foundation financially to say no to lots of projects. I turned down...
Which especially starting out, you don't say no to anything, right?
Yeah. I turned down 3 to 5 projects a year that just, to me... if I was going to do it in the margins of my life, because I had a full-time job, I had to really want to do it. I had to really love it, or I had to really like the people I was working with, or I had to say to myself, I can learn so much from this collaborator that it would be foolish to say no. And having met them, I like them too. So not only can I learn, but I like them, and we can move forward from that.
Cassie and Tonk was one of those.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's kind of been a default setting to be able to say no to projects that I don't think fit. So the difference for this one was I didn't have that foundation. I am full-time writing
Don't
and
have a
illustrating
safety
now.
net, essentially.
So that net isn't there. So I had to look hard at the contract and say, okay, based on the contract, what I might have to do is give the advance back, is give the page rate I've been paid up till now back in order to make everything okay. And so I had to say, is the money worth damaging the relationship with this publisher moving forward? And the answer, of course, is no. It's not worth that.
Yeah.
I'd rather give all the money back and keep that relationship intact. I'd rather have them hire a different illustrator. I'd rather them have a project that works on the deadline that they need with the person getting what they want. Because I really, they're great ladies.
And equally important in maintaining those relationships is also maintaining your own peace of mind, in that, you don't want to be stretched too thin on something that you're kind of pushing yourself and forcing yourself to make work. Because time for you, especially because you're very busy and you have a lot of projects on the go, is an extremely valuable resource. And once you run out of it, and once you get so stressed out that you can't you're basically pouring all of your energy into this one project, you can't do any of the other ones.
Well, and I think the indicator for me was, maybe this is useful to other people. The indicator for me was every time I would send work that I was confident was good, it might need to be changed, 10 or 15% in one direction or another. It would come back as being completely wrong. Like, that was the feedback. So
shake your confidence a little bit.
Well, yeah, and it's not just about confidence. It's to say that if I think it's maybe could be changed 10 or 15%, and they think it needs to be changed 100%, you're the wrong person for that job, right? They are sticking with it because they have a contract. I'm expected to stick with it because I have a contract. But at a certain point, it costs everybody too much time
For sure.
to be worth the money. So why not find somebody that fits better? And this was not it was not a decision I made lightly.
Yeah.
And I didn't phone up anybody and quit.
No, and this isn't the time either to become confrontational or
Right,
defensive
no,
or
not at all.
egotistical.
I called up the managing editor and explained exactly like I said. I think it's not a content problem, it's a style problem. And what do you think? Do I need to try to adapt to a different style? Will that help? No, that doesn't look like it's going to help. No, you agree that that's not going to help. And what's the best move forward, given the amount of time we have to finish the project on deadline? Do you think replacing me is the better answer? And, that was the decision that we came to together.
The person on the other end of the phone also saw this going on, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, she was doing a good job. She was good at her job, and she's managing a lot of people and a lot of moving parts. And she was trying to make the best out of a awkward working situation. And I think from her perspective, the fact that I wasn't going to have any hurt feelings over it, I think made it a lot better, because she also knows that I have other projects with that publisher and we're doing other things together. And, if it becomes a thorn, then it'll be a thorn in everyone's side forever.
Remember, it's about compatibility. It's a dialogue, not a fight. But I'm not gonna dial down my moves.
Okay. Then neither will I.
Why are you taking on projects like this instead of just doing your own thing under your own steam? Because you're at the point now where you can just kind of do your own stories and self-publish them and get them out there without anybody's help. So why are you taking on somebody else's story and making that happen instead of doing your own thing?
So we call this model, dear listeners, hybrid publishing, where you aren't just solely leaning on your income from either contracted work or personal work. You're doing both. Why are you doing that, Greg?
I'm doing that because I love books. I believe in these different publishers, and I believe that there's something something personally for me as an artist and writer to gain through the collaboration. That I will come out the other end better at what I can do for myself. So I say yes right now to creative projects that help me flex a muscle I know needs work. And things that are outside. So, I did this book for, I did the medicine book, I'm doing the work with Portage and Maine. And those works are more socially conscious. And that is not typically the area in which graphic novels sit in the public consciousness. Mm-hmm. And some of the projects that I want to do moving forward in my own work, I want to have a bigger voice to talk about some bigger things. And so this allows me to partner with people who are, bravely in that arena and train with them a little bit on the sands, right? Watch how the blood gets spilt and watch how the crowd reacts. Because it's very different in that space than in typical comic space. If you offend somebody in how you have portrayed Batman, right, there's not much really at stake, but their fandom. Yeah. But fandoms, right, are immortal, if you will. But if you're talking about a real human issue, there is real growth to be gained in the furthering the conversation, and some harm that can be done by getting the conversation pointed in the wrong direction.
Now, and this is something that you kind of want to go into more, Justin, because most of your work has been creator-owned, majority of it in terms of your books. You guys have put all the money towards not only producing the books, but distributing them yourselves. Mm-hmm. But you do have in your little trunk a bunch of pitches that you want to get together to, kind of approach traditional publishing. And I know that for you, like you and I have had these conversations where you're like, oh, but there's so much cut that comes from a distribution. It's a completely different deal. It's your own IP, and you're kind of protective of your IP because personally you can hand distribute it and do very well with it. So what to you, from your perspective, is a benefit of reaching out to traditional publishers to take on your IP?
Well, I think at this point, more so than a couple years ago, I have kind of the back catalog or the library to prove that I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Well, if I were to be sending out pitches before having my own graphic novels out, they probably wouldn't trust me to do this project on my own. They'd bring other people in. But at this point, what I'm kind of hoping is because I've published a couple of my own books and they're okay books, I think.
They're okay.
They're okay.
They're okay. Some of them are only in their second printing, but go on.
That publisher will greenlight some of my own ideas and just help out with getting that distribution much, much wider than I could. Because when it comes down to like dollars and cents, I know how much work it takes to make a book, print a book, and then I know how much I can make off of it now. And like comparing that to the traditional publishing route, it's the self-pub, like what I'm doing is better.
So, dear listener, if you're confused by this, why Justin would not want to, have his books in every Barnes and Noble,
and Chapters Indigo for those Canadians who are listening,
versus taking them to shows himself, it comes down to the economics of how a typical publishing deal works these days for the average person.
And yet 10 years ago, this distribution model that I'm talking about, the Comic-Cons and trade shows, was non-existent. I could never have gotten access to this amount of people with my books years ago. But now there's, I'm in a different city every weekend, surrounded by thousands and thousands of people that, hopefully enjoy my work.
And there's a different economy at play here, too, because, illustrators, I'm sorry, writers, but it's easier to write in the edges of your life. But if you're trying to finish a book on time for illustration, it's a full-time job. And so if you're not getting a page rate for those pages, which most publishers, aren't giving. They just want you to give them a finished manuscript.
That's exactly it.
Right.
And,
then you're laboring for an entire year, and then the traditional publisher will say, "Thank you. Here's an advance of between $5,000 maybe and $10,000. That would be generous. That's not worth the time that you put in."
And a promise of royalties that won't come until 12 months, or within the royalty cycle of when your book is put into the schedule.
Right.
So it's not a reliable income. It's not a reliable.
Yeah, when you compare
income.
that to the hundreds and hundreds of hours of work.
Yeah. I mean, some publishers, they pay out every 12 months. Some of them pay out every quarter. It's they all have their different payment models.
This, dear listener, is why you see so many authors have 5, 10, 15 books under their belt while they still have a regular job. Because they're building up their back catalog to the point where it pays regularly and predictably enough that they can say, yes, now I can afford to be a full-time writer. That's if you go traditionally. If you have the capacity, the willpower, the physical ability to visit lots of cities and take your work to those cities.
And the domestic flexibility.
Yeah, that's a
Let
key.
us not forget our long-suffering families.
That's right. Then you have a capacity to earn a far greater return on each book. It's selling one book at a table is like selling 5 or 6 to a distributor.
Now, however, if you do both approaches and you are already going to all of these shows and you've built up your own following, publishers see that as a high return on investment because you've already built up your platform. They won't look at you, like Justin is saying, as a brand new, zero platform, unrecognizable entity. They look at you and they say, he has a very large following, not only on social media, but they are just climbing over themselves to get the Gundams.
That sounds like such a cutting insult, a zero platform. Is that like, do publishers sit around and like put you in the zero platform
Well, the thing
category?
is, here
hurtful.
is the publisher perspective, because that's where I've been working for the past 8 years. They look at any author they acquire as an investment because everything that they are doing is an absolute risk. They are paying, to lease your IP for thousands of dollars, and if you are brand new, they have no idea how that's going to do. They are just looking
before you print the actual book,
before you've printed the book, before you've even
dollars.
pitched it to your sales team. So you have absolutely no idea what your sales team is even going to say. That's why a lot of publishers who are a lot older, they get more comfortable taking on newer properties because they have experience with like properties or like brand new authors who are very similar, and they know how to pitch you to their sales team. So they are taking a risk. They are fronting money on a horse that might not win the race or might not even place in the race. But they believe in the work, and they believe that it can be a good investment for them. So there is that kind of aspect of, the publisher's sitting around and they're judging me. But if they look at you and they see that you have a following, then they will feel more comfortable.
Certainly the most successful book ever to come out of the great publishing corporations of Ursa Minor. More popular than the Celestial Home Care Omnibus. Better selling than 53 More Things to Do in Zero Gravity. And more controversial than Ulon Kalufid's trilogy of philosophical blockbusters, Where God Went Wrong, Some More of God's Greatest Mistakes, and Who Is This God Person Anyway?
I have a question for somebody who's been working on that side of the publishing world. If you get, what's the percentage of success? What's the success rate of a typical publisher? If they're getting 100...
return on investment there.
Yeah, they take on 100 authors with 100 books. How many of those make them money and how many of them lose money?
Yep. There is no algorithm.
There's no algorithm. What's typical? I'm
Otherwise,
trying to get
all
a
publishers
sense.
would always be successful.
What's typical? It also depends on how they're gauging success. If they're gauging success,
making the money back on investment,
even if they've just broken even or that you've earned back your advance, they consider that a success.
Okay.
And some of these advances are $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. If you've earned that back through book sales, they consider that a success. And most of them will put into their contracts that they're happy for you to pitch to them their next book, next book first, because they want to build up your brand to be a part of their brand. So that's why a lot of publishers will take on series. But yeah, it is all touch and go. It's kind of like, did this book win an award that we submitted it to? And or did it even get nominated? Did it just have a really good public response? Or I am not a typical author also. I'm published by ECW Press, and we have a really great relationship because I invest a lot of time in going to shows and pitching myself and doing a ton of work on my own that they don't put the money into. They just kind of, oh, Sam's doing something, we'll retweet it. And I don't sell hundreds of thousands of books, but I do sell thousands, and they consider that success. And I earned out my royalties within the first 4 months because I do a ton of work. I don't have an enormous platform like you do, Justin, because we're in different kind of places. Like I'm young adult teen fiction, and you're very like got your finger on the pulse of the art world.
Well, yeah, we kind of, the unfair advantage, like people can tell if they like my stuff in a half second, but they have to invest to see if they like what you're doing.
Mine. Yeah. Right. And, but I work very hard at making myself available to fans so I can actually have a conversation with them. And so, a publisher will just be like, well, we didn't sell 100,000 books, but Sam is a really, really active author, and she goes and does a lot of events, and we consider that a good return.
So you had asked originally, like, what would be the benefit of going with a traditional publisher if you have access to, self-publishing means that are being lucrative? I think the real answer to that is if you're prolific and you're looking to build some relationships. What were you saying? What?
An empire?
An empire? Well, no, not an empire, but some relationships. And you want to publish work that is outside of your specific focus at the shows. So I'm looking at other publishers right now for a few projects that I'm doing who I know go different places more often, that the work that I'm doing could fit with them, and the labors that they do would yield results, and then I could do my thing for
also
other projects.
Physically, we're getting so many, you especially, you have 16 published titles, right? I have 4 or 5, I don't know, it's growing. I can't bring that many books to shows. I have to kind of concentrate on the newest one.
Right. Yeah.
But if I start to build these relationships with publishers, with distribution, and they can start taking my back catalog and still getting those out in the world while I'm only concentrating on the 1 or 2.
And then it comes back to what writing is for, right? You write so that it can be read. So if you can carve out a little space where you can have a living, then you can also widen that to a philosophical idea that, yay, everyone should read the work.
Yeah.
But the two are not, the one doesn't give way to the other very easily. You have to work hard to create that space.
And I would maybe finish out that thought by saying doing it both ways allows you more accessibility, just what you were talking about, physically existing in other markets that you otherwise wouldn't be able to access through the convention circuit. Like, for example, your baby metal work. That's in a completely different market you had never been in before and had never invested any kind of like physically going there because you couldn't really access it before. And now you will be able to because of a publishing deal that you have.
1,500 people showed up yesterday to like a photo that I posted of it, and that was, I was like, hey guys, I don't know where you guys were, but I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for liking it. You're right, it opens up a different model and demographic.
I have a question for you, Sam. Your point of sale game is pretty strong. Did that come from getting into these events yourself, or from being a published author and having to go...
You mean her table skills?
Like table and selling to people in person.
Dear listener, we've watched Sam work the table, as we say.
And it is just this year that I have started doing it. Yeah.
That's just, you never did that before?
I did it very sparsely on behalf of other publishers because I worked for example, I worked for Cheesine, and they would sometimes go to writing conferences, much different than conventions because it's a very small conference room where there's a bunch of dealers, and most of them are selling books. So you're all selling books at the same time. But now I'm actually ingratiating myself more in Comic Cons and in smaller local craft shows. And sorry, you wanted to ask how I sort of jumped into that?
Well, yeah, I guess my question was, how did you start doing that? It's through publishing. So I wanted to point out how, going to Comic-Cons and slinging your own stuff, you're going to be expected to do that stuff when you get picked up by a publisher. That skill set is required in both paths, right? Like the publisher wants you to have people skills. And
they want you to have people skills, but also, for example, my publisher really doesn't do Comic Cons because they're like a literary publisher, right? They're going to festivals and those kind of things, which are adjudicated. So it's really hard to get into them. You have to apply to get into them as a guest because they're paying for these people to come, which is very different from a con. So when I, came to them with my first book and cheesing work under my belt, I had discovered, hey, there's this whole other thing, which is Comic-Cons. So I do that all on my own. I just my publicist phones me and they're like, where are you going and what month and what weekend? And I literally give them my schedule. I'm doing FanQuest on June 23rd and 24th. I'm doing a local craft market. I'm doing Icon. Then I'm doing in September, every single weekend, there's a fan expo or something like that. And they're just like scribbling it down madly because they don't really do that.
We're like creative mutual funds for them.
Yeah.
Right. They put in a little bit of effort and they get all this bonus. Can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. So you're an author who sends query letters and sends out, lots of contacts to reach out to other publishers. I've been doing that a lot this year too. And I find that adding that list of shows, like just to say like, I'll be doing 25 events or I do 30 events a year. Even if the response is no, the work is not right for us, it usually also contains, you do how many? You do what?
They start asking you, and they're like, what?
They are, that this is increasingly being perceived as a huge level of added value to the publisher.
Yes.
That you're boots on the ground somewhere doing stuff.
Because to a publisher, they're very limited. They're like, oh, you do a reading. Oh, you're going to be at a reading series. Oh, you're going to appear at chapters. And then to us, it's like, no. Every single weekend, I'm setting up a table with my display materials and promo materials. So, like, I'll put out postcards and I'll put out information. And for me, my sequel is coming out in September, so I'm spending a lot of my time hand selling the first book and then handing out a postcard with it saying the sequel's coming out in September. And then after September, it's going to be, here's the sequel. And I pay the money to order the books from my publisher and have them shipped to me, and I take them with me on my travails. And
you get an author discount, though.
I get an author discount, but 40% off on a $20 book. My margins are very thin, so I have to consider that this is all promotional value that I'm getting. And people are already, on my social media being like, I'm excited to see you at this show. I'm excited to see you at that show. People who I haven't been able to access yet, but I'm just starting to, because people are paying attention and they want to meet the author at whatever event that they possibly can. So, like, for example, this year, I was contacted by author Kristen Ciccarelli, who wrote The Last Namsara, and she and I are both guests at HalCon. I've never been to HalCon before.
It's a great show.
Yeah, and I've never been to the East Coast to do any promotion. And she was like, oh, so we're both guests at HalCon. Do you want to do a maritime tour? Because she also hadn't been on the East Coast either. And having two authors is better than one. So now we're going to be in New Brunswick and PEI, preceding the show and kind of meeting people we otherwise wouldn't be able to. She's from
like Thelma and Louise, but with books.
Yeah, we're not going to kill ourselves at the end, though. We are going to drive to our respective homes to see our families afterwards. But taking that chance and doing it on our own. So we're looping in our publicists, but we're like setting up these events, pitching ourselves to them to kind of front these appearances in an area that we've never been before. And we're taking the time to do that ourselves. You can go to your publisher and you can be like, hey, I want to do a tour. And they'll be like, okay, do it then. Because you're not their only author.
Yeah. It must be like winning the lottery for them, having somebody that'll actually do it on their own steam, right?
It is. And again, that's kind of what harkens back to the Comic-Con thing. You're doing it on your own steam in a market that they don't necessarily understand or don't have the time to invest in. So you're kind of testing it for them. And they're just kind of helping you get there.
Let's not get caught. What are you talking about? Let's keep going. What do you mean? Go! You sure?
There's a through line here, too, I think. For all of the stories we've all shared today, I realized that we're all trying things that we haven't done before.
Mm-hmm.
Things that just haven't been done. It's all kind of new territory.
Sometimes
new
it's
ground.
things that haven't been done, so we're trying it. Sometimes it's things we haven't done, so we're trying it. And if you're listening to this wondering, should I take that shot? Should I try that? Yes, make an informed decision about giving it a shot. Don't, gamble all of your grocery money on it, but perhaps some of your time.
Yeah, I mean, these are all decisions that are made with the intent of spreading your word, your golden word of your writing, your stories, your artwork, getting out to people who you normally wouldn't have access to, and developing the routes to get there in the most economical way. And yeah, like Greg said, do not just dump thousands of dollars on shows when you have one book. I waited until I had at least 3 things I could put on a table because I had one book, and then all of a sudden this year I've had like 2 to add to that. And now I have more that I can reach out to people with to make the investment a little bit more worth it. I've been biding my time because for years people have been like, why don't you go to Comic-Cons? And it's like, it's just not economically sound for me now at that point, and now it is. And the return I've seen has been really excellent. Now, I'm not just talking financial return. I'm also talking the social and the reader return.
Yeah, it takes a while to get that portfolio to a point that, yeah, it makes sense to do more than just like the local little events.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's that we've talked about it before, the 80-20 rule of economics. 80% of your cash comes from 20% of your return customers. So if you're hoping to take the leap from your job into another thing, you need to be another way to look at that is 80% of people you encounter, you may never speak to again. They won't be interested. They won't stick around. So if you go into it with that mindset of that, like 80% of these people I'll probably never see again, it can help you with that nervousness of why am I doing this? What's happening? Like they're not coming back. And the 20% that like it, they'll really like it. So.
Yep. And even if you don't do well at a show or you don't meet your goals, there's always something that you can learn from that experience to leverage you the next time. The things that you hear people talking about that they want to see, you can always bring that to your table the next time. And again, focus on, when you're starting out, doing the local shows because you have somewhere free to sleep. Yeah. And those smaller shows, while they may be smaller, it means that you're going to have more people coming to your table again and again. And the table rates will be cheaper. Like, these are all things that you do have to consider. But don't get discouraged if, you do a show and you only make $100. You've made $100 and you've also had some really good interactions with people that can turn into sales in the future.
And don't be tricked by an outlier. If you do a show and you're like, oh, I made $5,000, that's incredible, I should quit my job immediately. You can't live off $5,000. That might just have been a spectacularly good show for you that one time because of a whole bunch of incomparables. You need to have a steady trend of visiting shows and earning X in order to expect Y.
And can I ask how much you made at your first show, Greg?
My very first
Your very first show.
What are we qualifying as a show?
You had a table that you had to pay for.
A table, you did a display, you presented your stuff, and you sold it.
I made $1,000 at my very first show.
Wow.
But
that's a great start. I made $180.
What show was it?
C4 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 years later, now look at him.
Yeah, now look at him.
Now
we can barely see him.
We're looking at
him. The shine is so bright.
Yes.
The shine is so bright. But I'll quantify that $1,000 by saying it was labor that we had put in a lot of effort into. It was at it was KeyCon. It was related to a independently produced science fiction pilot that was being, like, there had been a bunch of hype about what are these guys doing. So when I showed up with some of my work there too, it was, I think, more people picking up to be like, I wonder if it'll fail. Let's take a look at what's going to fail.
Also, dear listener, KeyCon is a Winnipeg convention, so your costs were much less than they would have been to travel, to ship all of your stuff.
Keeping in mind that $1,000 is, it is the money you make, because we're not talking about what you earn, but what you earn less your expenses.
Yeah. I shared a table with James Gillespie, so I think it was $25. It was like $50 a table back then or something like that. It was,
So if I had to travel somewhere, and pay a table fee.
And pay accommodations.
Then I would have made $0.
Eat out every night.
And ship your stuff to you.
And ship my stuff to that location, I would have made $0 in the balance. So the fact that I did it locally allowed me to
The first time you guys traveled, was it a bit of a risk, or did you were fairly confident in your existing numbers and setup that you knew you weren't going to lose money?
Totally, risk.
Sam?
Yeah, total risk. I did Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle.
Whoa, Emerald City.
I was in the red, totally in the red. But
But you were also in Seattle.
But it was a hell of an experience because I had 1/3 of a table, in fact, because I shared with someone and there were people running up to the table going, "This is the book I was telling you about. I took this book out of the library. I already own this book. I can't wait for the sequel." And I had never been to the States before. And I had never traveled to any con before. This was my first out-of-town con.
They saw 2 feet of space with your name on it and recognized it out of the thousands of people there at the show.
Yeah, and they would come like just to my table. And
you heard it here first, people.
Yeah,
Samantha
and that
Beiko.
was very shocking because I knew that I was selling books in the States because my book is distributed in Canada, the US, and the UK. But I hadn't seen that really direct reader. I had seen it from like librarians when I went to Book Expo last year as a guest and was just kind of pitching the book to them, and they were very excited and very kind. And again, thank you to the American Library Association and other libraries who have supported the book incredibly. But I had never seen that actual fundamental reader reaction just from having the books face out on a giant tower, and I sold out of that book. I brought just one box, but I sold them all. That was my first out of town outing, and I was in the red, but I learned a lot from it.
And your heart was full.
My heart was full, but my wallet was not.
And I'm not being facetious there. Like, if you go and you didn't make money, but you saw all of these other incomparables, that can be an indicator of success too, as long as that is what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
If you are only in it for the dollars at the beginning, you're going to be full of bitter disappointment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a road.
It's a long road to build up to solvency.
Also, I don't do this full time.
Right.
I also work. I also have a job as a full-time publishing freelancer. So I have clients that I draw an income from. So I was able to take that risk. It's like Greg was talking about, your safety net.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to do the outro now that I think about it.
That's right. Did you have anything to add there, Justin? It seemed like you were going to add something at the end.
No.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I am the queen of this podcast this week, and I thank my 2 guests that came to my podcast for their candor, for their completely varied discussion on how genre gets made. So join the fight and make comics.